Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be doing a super exciting video about what, for my money, is the best TV show I have ever seen, and that is The Genius. So calling The Genius the best TV show that you've never heard of is a really bold move, but I am extremely willing to make that bold move because I believe that it is absolutely true. This is not a well-known TV show to English-speaking audiences, and it is fantastic. It's gonna take me just a little while to explain the show to you, but I guarantee that it will be worth it. It is a phenomenal TV show and I am in love with it. So The Genius is a South Korean reality competition show. Yes, you have to read subtitles. It is in Korean, but honestly, for me, this was something that I adjusted to very, very quickly. It's not something that you can give your divided attention to, but as someone who is a serial multitasker, I found myself glued to my screen and unable to tear my eyes away to multitask. So I think if you are a timid viewer who's worried about having to read subtitles or is worried that you won't be able to devote your full attention to it, I personally don't think that will be a problem. So in The Genius, once a week, the players come together to play a series of strategic games. In every single episode, there is a main match and a death match. So the main match is a game that everyone plays in, and at the end of the game, there is a winner or multiple winners and a loser or multiple losers. If there are multiple losers of the main match, one is chosen for elimination and they go to the death match. They pick someone who is not one of the winners to play against in the death match. And the death match is a 1-versus-1 battle to see who is going to be eliminated. At the end of the episode, one person loses the death match and is eliminated, and the next week all of the remaining contestants return to repeat the process again. And then by the finale, there are 2 remaining contestants who battle it out to see who will be the genius. So I just threw a ton of information at you, and I'm sure I've already lost some people, but please hear me out. So when I say words like strategy and complex, I'm sure that some people tune out and are like, that sounds like really brainy and kind of boring, but I assure you the show is absolutely anything but boring. It is so exciting and fast-paced the entire time. And I'm sure that some of you physically cringed when I mentioned yet another reality competition, but seriously, this thing is anything but just another reality competition. The show is brilliant, and I am about to explain to you why it is so brilliant. For me, personally, this show has absolutely every element that I could look for in a show, all mashed up into one beautiful, beautiful competition. One thing that every single amazing show needs is great characters, and oh boy, does The Genius have some super great personalities. A lot of these people are some of the most lovable and some of the most entertaining people you will ever experience in your life. There are a few of these players that just completely burst onto your screen and refuse to let go of you. Seriously, there are many fans of this show who are big reality TV show watchers who would say that many of the contestants on the show are some of the best reality competition contestants of all time. There are so many of them who are so clever, so intelligent, and also so entertaining and so much fun to watch. You like jaw-dropping reveals and massive plot twists? The Genius doles those out like Mardi Gras beads. They're all over the place in every single season. Impressive feats of the human brain? All over the place. Some of the most clever, intelligent, witty people I have ever seen. And everyone likes their reality shows with a touch of drama, so prepare yourselves for the absolute chaos following a really intense betrayal, because that happens quite a bit. And if you're looking for a show that's just really entertaining and really fun, I do not think that I have ever grinned like an idiot so much as when I watch The Genius. This show makes me so insanely happy to watch. It's just so much fun, and it's so clever, it's so smart, it's just the entire package. So before I get into explaining some of the more intricate workings of the show and like some examples of some games, I do want to shout out what is possibly the biggest and the best selling point of the entire show, which is the editing. So editing typically isn't something that you think about a ton when you think of reality competitions, but The Genius makes the most of its editing. It is phenomenal. A lot of the time, the editors will keep secrets from the audience, and something really out there will happen, and then they'll rewind the tape and show you something secret that they didn't show you before that has led to this jaw-dropping awesome moment. It is such a clever mechanic, and it is so well done in this TV show. For example, maybe there's this large alliance working together and everything seems to be going well, they seem to be dominating a main match, and then something goes pear-shaped and you have no idea what's happened until they rewind the tape and they show you a group of people within that group that are working together secretly against everyone else. And then they go back to the current timeline and you see everything unfolding, and it's just so clever. It's so awesome. There are so many amazing plot twists within this show just because of that single fast forwarding and rewinding technique. And they'll do this a lot at the beginning of episodes too. They'll introduce the main match and then immediately afterward they'll fast forward to a few hours later when everything is going awry and you have no idea how things got to that point. And it's just so awesome, and it's such a cool mechanic. Since I've been throwing so much information at you, now is probably a good time to pause and let you know that the TV show does a really great job explaining the games to you. It's explained at the beginning of the episode to all the contestants, and then after a few minutes, after everyone's strategizing a little bit, a graphic will come up and a narrator will come on and will re-explain the game to you in either simpler terms or more detailed terms that will actually help you understand what's going on a little bit better. They also do this with graphics when people are trying to come up with strategies as well, so it makes the TV show really, really easy to follow even when these really complex strategies and games are going on. Okay, so enough of all this detailed explanation about this TV show. What are these games that they're playing? Are they even interesting? And the answer is yes. Now, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes these games get really complex, really complicated. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that makes it really cool, but I will use some of the more easy to understand ones to explain to you what these main matches are kind of like. So someone on a podcast that I listened to explained this really well, so I'm gonna borrow his explanation. A great way to think about these games in The Genius is by thinking about the game Mafia or Werewolf. Essentially, many of these games within The Genius are about secret identities and secret information and different alliance building, and they're all very interesting and very intriguing and very complex strategically. And there's one game in season 1 that is actually very similar to Mafia or Werewolf, and that is the zombie game, which is personally one of my favorite games. The way it works is there are 10 contestants left, 8 of them draw human cards, 2 of them are zombies. So you're the only person who knows your secret identity, but the goal within the game is every round you have to touch another person. And obviously you don't know if you're touching a human or a zombie. If you touch a zombie, you become a zombie. There are a lot of other details to the game, but that's essentially the game design, is you're trying to not turn into a zombie, but you're also trying to get a lot of points from touching other people so that you can be the person who wins the game. But if you're a zombie, you want to turn everyone else into zombies so that you don't lose the game. So the zombie game is one example of a Genius game, but there are tons and tons and tons. I'll throw another example at you. There's one in season 1 called the election game, which, as it sounds, there's an election. Anyone who wants to run can run, and you can drop out of the race at any time with no penalty. However, when it gets down to the final vote, the candidate who gets the most votes wins and is the winner of the main match, and the person who gets the least votes is marked for death and goes to the death match automatically. However, if you don't want to run for the presidency, you can just be a voter. That means you can't automatically go to the death match, but you also can't win and get yourself immunity, so you could get picked by the person who does go to the death match. And that is one of the key points of The Genius, is that sure, you can do a lot of really strategic and very sneaky things in the games, but if you screw someone over too badly, they can always pick you for the death match. So you have to do things very secretly and very covertly, or you just have to be a team player and hope that nothing goes wrong. The show is just so cleverly designed, and so many of the games are absolutely amazing, and it's just phenomenal. And like I said, it sounds very complex and it sounds very confusing, but it's actually a lot of fun, and they do a really good job explaining things to the audience. And oftentimes the contestants can get a little bit lost too. So they are right there with you, trying to understand how everything is working. So you never feel stupid while watching this show. Even though all these people are being very clever and they're figuring things out, you never feel dumb if you don't figure things out, because there's at least one or two people who are a little clueless as well. So there are also a few other little tidbits about the show that are kind of cool that I wanted to explain, and one of those are the Garnets. So Garnets are actually an in-game currency. You win Garnets for winning a main match, or you can gain them within games. But you can also spend them within games, and you can bribe other players with them. And if you go to a death match and you win the death match, you actually get your opponent's Garnets. So having a lot of Garnets could make you a target to be picked for death matches. And by the end of the game, the winner gets all of the remaining Garnets that are in the game as the prize money. So oftentimes you'll see people say, if you help me in this death match, I will give you a Garnet or 2 Garnets. Or you'll see people spending Garnets for advantages in main matches so they can get some sort of lead on everyone else. However, if you do buy advantages in the games, those Garnets are gone. If you give them to other players, another player just has more Garnets than you, but if you spend Garnets on in-game advantages, those do go away. So you have to be very careful with your Garnets, because you want to make sure that you can get other people on your side, but you also don't want to have way too many. And then another of my favorite aspects of the show, especially in the first season, is the music. The music in the show is phenomenal. Essentially, the production company owns the clearinghouse for all licensing of music, so essentially they're allowed to use whatever songs that they want, and it leads to a really eclectic and interesting soundtrack. Also, a lot of the players, especially if they're really prominent players, will have their own character theme songs. So if they do something particularly impressive, their song will start playing. One player, their song is Bangarang by Skrillex. So whenever they do something particularly awesome, Bangarang will start playing. Extreme Ways by Moby, which I think is really attached to the Born series, is the main Sting song, especially in seasons 1 and 2. So whenever Moby's song comes on, everyone is like, oh no, something's about to happen. Stuff is going down. Something really cool is about to happen. It's just absolutely phenomenal, on top of all of the other absolutely amazing things in this show. And I just want to reiterate once again, despite the fact that there are these very complex strategic games going on, it is so much fun. So many of these contestants and these players are so entertaining, so hilarious, so silly, so out there, and it just adds even more entertainment onto the fact of all of these interesting strategies going on. Hey, so very quick interruption from future Kristen, because there is a fairly important aspect to the show that I totally forgot to mention. And that is that the majority of the cast throughout the run of the show is actually made up of Korean celebrities. For the first 2 seasons, the cast is entirely Korean celebrities, whereas in season 3, they actually have open casting calls. Now, these people range very widely in their celebrity status. There are some major celebrities, and then there are people who are just kind of distinguished in their fields. So some of these people aren't celebrities in the traditional sense, but they're rather well-known public figures, whereas some of these people are major celebrities that almost every Korean person watching the show would recognize. And then season 3 is when they finally start to have some open casting calls for just general members of the public who are able to pass some of the intelligence and personality exams. So obviously the vast majority of these celebrities aren't people that would be recognizable to the average American viewer or Western viewer, but there are some you may be familiar with if you are interested in certain different entertainment things. For example, one of the most famous people that they've ever had on the show is actually a member of a K-pop group, and his name is Kim Sung-yu, and he's in Infinite. So if you're a fan of Infinite, their leader was on The Genius, and oh boy is he a lot of fun. Also, an important thing to note with Korean names, just as I'm running through them, is that their last name or their familial name comes first, and then their first name or the name that they go by. So for example, if I say Kim Sung-yu, he goes by Sung-yu, but Kim is his family name or his last name, as we would say in the Western world. He's probably the one that would be the most recognizable to someone in the Western world, purely because K-pop is a really big deal, but there are maybe like 1 or 2 people that you also might be familiar with. And then if you're a fan of esports and specifically StarCraft, you may be familiar with a couple of the people who were on a couple seasons, and their names are Hong Jin-ho and Lim Yo-wan, who are 2 of the world's biggest StarCraft players. They've both retired at this point in their early to late 30s, but they were major StarCraft players, widely viewed to be the second and first best in the world. And then there's another person that you have probably seen and are familiar with, but you don't know who they are, and that is No Hongchul, who is widely known to American and Western viewers as the elevator guy in the Gangnam Style music video. I'll insert a picture. And yes, he is exactly as bonkers and fun as he appears to be in that video. He is one of the most fun contestants who has ever been on the show. Those are probably the only people who've ever been on the show that you would have heard of, but I'll throw a couple more names and faces at you that potentially you maybe might have heard of, or that would be really notable in Korea. One of the cast members in season 1 is a musician named Lee Sang-min, and he was a really famous pop musician in the group Rura back in the 90s. Another cast member in season 1 is Cha Min-soo, who also goes by Jimmy Cha, who is a well-known poker player who I believe has played in several poker tournaments in the Western world. In season 2, a member of the girl group Rainbow, whose name is Jaekyung, is on the show. I'd never heard of Rainbow before watching The Genius, but maybe some of you have heard of that group. And then in season 3, one of the cast members is a writer of a webtoon called Dr. Frost. I'm not sure if this is well known in the Western world, but his name is Lee Jongbum, and he's on season 3. I think that's about the extent of anyone that anyone in the Western world would probably be like immediately familiar with. However, there are also some really major Korean celebrities. In fact, there's one named Kim Gura in season 1 who I've been told pretty much anyone in Korea would recognize. Another really famous person who's on the show is named Jang Dongmin, and he is a very famous comedian in Korea. This probably isn't someone, like I said, that Westerners will be familiar with, but these people are major celebrities in Korea. And like I said, in season 3, they do start to have open casting calls, so there's this entire new pool of people that they have to choose from who are just your everyday smart people. So that is a really cool twist added into the game in season 3, and it adds to some really cool players. So yeah, that is just my quick little tangent about the people who are actually on the show, because the fact that they're celebrities is really interesting, and the fact that they sometimes have celebrities and normal people in the mix is also really interesting, and I just totally forgot to mention that when I was filming the other day, so I wanted to add this in really quickly. So now back to Past Kristen. So I believe that is about all I wanted to say about The Genius. I'm sure there is more that I'm completely forgetting or that I wanted to say and I just can't because of spoilers, but honestly, even if this is mildly intriguing to you, I would totally recommend that you at least check out the first episode, because it is a great introduction into the entire show. And I love this show so much, and I think that everyone should at least give it a try because it's so good. So I haven't really touched on how to find this show. Never fear, I have links. Essentially, there is a subber, Bumdiddlyumptious, who does all of the subtitles for these shows and for some other shows that a lot of fans of The Genius really like. And all of the links are on their Tumblr page, and a lot of the episodes, all of season 1 in fact, is on YouTube. So I will leave a link up in the cards to the playlist for season 1 of The Genius, which is on YouTube, so you can go check that out. I will also leave links down in the description to all of Bumdiddlyumptious's stuff, and to the Genius Reddit if you want to check it out, because that is the best place to go to talk to people about The Genius. Obviously, there are massive spoilers in some sections of that, so beware, be careful. do not click on spoilery things. Genius fans are really, really awesome about not spoiling things, so as long as you are careful about clicking on things that are spoilery, you should not be spoiled. Also, let me know down in the comments if you have any questions about the TV show. I would obviously love to answer those for you. I will also leave links down in the description to some of the English language content that is out there about the Genius, specifically 2 podcasts, the Dom and Colin podcast and Genius Cast with Scott and Mike. Genius Cast with Scott and Mike has a really great introduction to season 1 that I would recommend everyone listen to before they start watching the show. And they also have episode by episode recaps of the first 6 episodes of season 1, so that will help you get your feet wet a little bit as you're trying to bog your way through the first few episodes, because it is a little confusing at first, but you catch on very quickly, especially when you have people on podcasts helping you to understand what's going on. And finally, the last Genius thing that I have linked down in the description is my personal blog where I've started blogging about the Genius. I have a few posts up there that are about ranking the players in different seasons and ranking the main matches in different seasons. And I will soon have a blog post up where I basically do this in more of a typed out form in a blog post format where I can make sure everything is explained perfectly and I can answer any questions that anyone has. So that will be there too soon, but I do have a specific Genius tab which will be linked down in the description. Also, I totally forgot this as well. Rob Has a Podcast has an audiobook where they go through the Genius season 1 episode by episode. It's their first time through the season when they're talking about it, so they will be kind of as lost as you are. So that is super helpful because they are about as knowledgeable as you are the first time through. So it's really, really awesome to go through it with them. It is a $3 or $4 audiobook, but I really enjoyed it and I would recommend it to y'all as well. Plus, your first time through it is really great to have people talking episode by episode so you can hear other people's opinions on what is going on as well, especially if you feel a little confused after watching a certain part. And of course, then there's me. All of my social media links are down in the description. Twitter is the best place to ask me questions or just the comments of this video. But either way, if you have questions about the show, let me know. I will answer them in as non-spoilery a way as possible because I would love to get every single human into this beautiful show so that maybe they will come back for season 5 because all of the fans want it. So that is it for this video. Like I said, links to all my social media are down in the description, including my Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you on Goodreads. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching.